History of Organization Development. A brief history of OD will help to clarify the evolution of the term as well as some of the problems and confusion that have surrounded it. As currently practiced, OD emerged from 5 major backgrounds or stems. A. Laboratory Training Background, or the T group. This stem of OD pioneered laboratory training, or the T group, a small, unstructured group in which participants learn from their own interactions and involving group processes about such issues as interpersonal relations, personal growth, leadership, and group dynamics. In the summer of 1946, Kurt Lewin and his staff at the Research Center for Group Dynamics at MIT were asked by the Connecticut Interracial Commission for help on training of community leaders. A workshop was developed, and the community leaders were brought together to learn about leadership and to discuss problems. At the end of each day, the researchers discussed with the participants what behaviors and group dynamics they had observed. Thus, the first T group was formed, in which people reacted to data about their own behavior. The researchers drew 2 conclusions about this first T group experiment. 1. Feedback about group interaction was a rich learning experience, and 2. The process of group building had potential for learning that could be transferred to back-home situations. As a result of this experience, the Office of Naval Research and the National Education Association provided financial backing to form the National Training Laboratories, or NTL. Gould Academy in Bethel, Maine, was selected as a site for further work. Since then, Bethel has played an important part in NTL. The first basic skill groups were offered in the summer of 1947. The program was so successful that the Carnegie Foundation provided support for programs in 1948 and 1949. This led to a permanent program for NTL within the National Education Association. In the 1950s, the T group expanded its programs, with NTL members becoming increasingly involved with business and industry. Notable among these industry efforts was the pioneering work of Douglas McGregor at Union Carbide, Herbert Shepard and Robert Blake at Esso Standard Oil, now ExxonMobil, McGregor and Richard Beckhardt at General Mills, and Bob Tannenbaum at TRW Space Systems. Applications of T-group methods at these companies spawned the term organization development and led corporate personnel and industrial relations specialists to expand their roles to offer internal consulting services to managers. The practical aspects of T-group techniques for organizations gradually became known as team building, which is one of the most common and institutionalized forms of OD today. B. Action Research and Survey Feedback Background. Kurt Lewin was also involved in the second movement that led to OD's emergence as a practical field of social science. This second background refers to the processes of action research and survey feedback. The action research contribution began in the 1940s with studies conducted by national scientists John Collier, Kurt Lewin, and William White. They discovered that research needed to be closely linked to action if organization members were to use it to manage change. A collaborative effort was initiated between organization members and social scientists to collect research data about an organization's functioning, to determine the causes of problems, and to devise and implement solutions. After implementation, further data were collected to assess the results, and the cycle of data collection and action often continued. The results of action research were twofold. 1. Members of organizations were able to use research on themselves to guide action and change. 2. Social scientists were able to study the process to derive new knowledge that could be used elsewhere. These studies did much to establish action research as integral to organization change. Today, it is the backbone of many OD applications. A key component of action research studies was the systematic collection of survey data that were fed back to the client organization. Following Lewin's death in 1947, his research center for group dynamics moved to Michigan and joined the Institute for Social Research, which was headed by Renzi Slickert, a pioneer in developing scientific approaches to attitude surveys. Lickert and Floyd Mann administered a company-wide survey of management and employee attitudes at Detroit Edison. The major findings of the survey were first reported to the top management and then transmitted throughout the organization. The feedback sessions were conducted in task groups, with supervisors and their immediate subordinates discussing the data together. In 1950, 8 accounting departments asked for a repeat of the survey, thus generating a new cycle of feedback meetings. From the findings of these feedback meetings, Lickert and Mann derived several conclusions about the effects of survey feedback on organization change. C. Normative background. The intellectual and practical advances from the laboratory training STEM and the action research survey feedback STEM were followed closely by the belief that the human relations approach represented a one best way to manage organizations. This normative belief was exemplified in Lickert's participative management style, or System 4, and Blake Mutton's Grid OD programs. Lickert's participative management program characterized organizations as having one of the 4 types of management systems. System 1, exploitative authoritative systems. System 2, benevolent authoritative systems. System 3, consultative systems. And System 4, participative group systems. Lickert applied System 4 management to organizations using a survey feedback process. The survey asked members for their opinions about both the present and ideal conditions of 6 organizational features: leadership, motivation, communication, decisions, goals, and control. In the second stage, the data were fed back to different work groups within the organization. Group members examined the discrepancy between their present situation and their ideal, generally using System 4 as the ideal benchmark, and generated action plans to move the organization towards that goal. D. Productivity and quality of work-life background. Social Technical System, STS. The contribution of the productivity and quality of life, QWL background, to OD can be described in 2 phases. The first phase is described by the original projects developed in Europe in the 1950s. Based on the research of Eric Trist and his colleagues at the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations in London, early practitioners in Europe developed work designs aimed to better integrating technology and people. Social Technical Systems, or the STS. These programs generally involve joint participation by unions and management in the design of work. This resulted in work designs giving employees high levels of discretion, task variety, and feedback. As these programs migrated to America, a variety of concepts and techniques were adopted, and the approach tended to be more mixed than in Europe practice. The program became popularly known as QWL. At one point, the productivity and QWL approach became so popular that it was called an ideological movement. This was particularly evident in the spread of quality circles within many companies. Popularized in Japan, quality circles are a group of employees trained in problem-solving methods that meet regularly to resolve work environment, productivity, and quality control concerns and to develop more efficient ways of working. At the same time, many of the QWL programs started in the early 1970s were achieving success. Highly visible were corporations such as General Motors, Ford, and Honeywell, and unions such as the United Automobile Workers, the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers, the Communications Workers of America, and the Steel Workers. Today, this second phase of QWL activity continues primarily under the banner of employment involvement, as well as total quality management and Six Sigma programs, rather than of QWL. It was from these roots that the ideas of employee involvement and employee empowerment came into being and are still in use today. E. Strategic Change Background. The strategic change background is a recent influence on OD's evolution. As organizations and their technological, political, and social environments have become more complex and more uncertain, the scale and intricacies of organizational change have increased. This trend has produced the need for a strategic perspective from OD and encourage planned change processes at the organization level. Strategic change involves improving the alignment among an organization's environment, strategy, and organization design. Strategic change interventions include efforts to improve both the organization's relationship to its environment and the fit between its technical, political, and cultural systems. The need for strategic change is usually triggered by some major disruption to the organization. One of the first applications was Richard Beckard's use of open systems planning. He proposed that an organization's environment and its strategy could be described and analyzed. Based on the organization's core mission, the differences between what the environment demanded and how the organization responded could be reduced and performance improved. The strategic change background has significantly influenced OD practice. For example, implementing strategic change requires OD practitioners to be familiar with competitive strategy, finance and marketing, as well as team building, action research, and survey feedback. Together, these skills have improved OD's relevance to organizations and their managers. Critical founders who shaped the OD field. While the social movements provided an important backdrop for the emergence of the field, there were also a great number of individuals who played a significant role in building up the knowledge base through both their academic work and their consultancy work. Kurt Lewin. Kurt Lewin is widely recognized as the founding father of OD, although he died before the concept became current in the mid-1950s. Lewin, a prolific theorist, researcher, and practitioner in group dynamics and social change, was instrumental in the development of T groups, survey feedback, and action research. His work led to the creation of OD and still serves as a major source of its concepts and methods. Lewin founded the Research Center for Group Dynamics at MIT. Ronald Lippitt. Lippitt was on Lewin's original staff at the Research Center at MIT and was also a member of the first group of trainers for T Group. In 1947, he was one of the founders of NTL Group Development, which started holding sessions in Bethel, Maine. This event evolved into the birth of the NTL Institute for Applied Behavioral Science. Together with Lee Bradford, he invented flip chart paper in 1946 as a convenient way to record, retrieve, and display data in OD activities and in training. Edgar Schein, a social psychologist, is a professor at the MIT Sloan School of Management, made a notable mark on the field in many areas including career development, group process consultation, and organizational culture. His concepts and tools are forerunners in helping organizations to think of combining unconventional motivation and organization way of managing staff career structure. He is generally credited with inventing the term corporate culture. Shine showed us that process consultation is an essential philosophy underlying OD, not just a tool. Douglas McGregor. McGregor is mostly known for his classic work, The Human Side of Enterprise, which had a great impact on managers since its publication in 1960. McGregor identified an approach of creating an environment within which employees are motivated via authoritative direction and control or integration and self-control, which he called Theory X and Theory Y. He was one of the first professor consultants and one of the first behavioral scientists working with corporations to help implement the application of T-group skills in complex organizations. Rensis Likert. Likert headed the Institute for Social Research in Michigan University when Lewin's research group transferred after his death. He was a pioneer in developing scientific approaches to attitude surveys. His doctoral dissertation at Columbia University developed the widely used 5-point Likert scale. Likert showed the importance of holding up a mirror for the organization to reflect how its members think about themselves and how to strengthen their relationships. His early work on this gave rise to the use of organization survey. Robert Tannenbaum. He is known for being the first researcher to conduct the earliest team-building activities in 1952 to 53 at the U.S. Naval Ordnance Test Station at China Lake, California. He and Art Shedline started the first non-degree training program on OD at UCLA. Chris Argyris is an American business theorist. He was also one of the first to conduct team-building sessions in 1957. He has made extensive contributions to theory and research on laboratory training, OD, and organizational learning. One of his books on OD, Intervention Theory and Method in 1970, stands as a classic in the field. He asserted that it is important to gather valid information and give clients choice to secure commitment. Richard Beckard, organizational theorist. He helped to define organization development as an effort planned, organization-wide, managed from the top to increase organization effectiveness and health through planned interventions in the organization's processes using behavioral science knowledge. He developed one of the first major non-degree training programs in OD, the NTL's program for specialists in organizational training and development. Herbert Allen Shepard, an American economist. He had a major impact in the emergence of OD through his extensive practice in the corporate world as well as his involvement with the NTL work. In 1960, he founded the first doctoral program devoted to training OD specialists at the Case Institute of Technology. His continuous experiments in OD at major Esso Standard Oil refineries resulted in significant learning for us. Two particular lessons that emerged from his work. One, the requirement for top management's active involvement in the leadership of the program, and two, the importance of the need for an on-the-job application. Robert Blake. He was an American management theoretician. He did pioneer work in the field of organizational dynamics. Together with Jane Motton, he developed the managerial grid model in 1964, which attempts to conceptualize management in terms of relations and leadership style. He spent 16 months in Tavistock and was deeply influenced by family group therapy. Upon returning to the USA, he joined the NTL programs at Bethel to staff T groups for 6 years and was significant in shaping the changes in T group.
There are 10 core values in organizational development according to Dr. Bill Geller. The first value is the quality of life. Here, the people are being satisfied with their whole life experiences. The second core value is health, human potential, empowerment, growth, and excellence. Here, the people are being healthy, aware of the fullness of their potential, recognizing their power to bring that potential into being, growing into it, living it, and generally doing the best they can with it, individually and collectively. The third core value deals with freedom and responsibility. People being free and responsible in choosing how they will live their lives. The fourth core value is justice. Here, people would be living their lives with the results are fair and right for everyone. The fifth core value deals with dignity, integrity, worth, and fundamental rights of individuals, organizations, communities, societies, and other human systems. The sixth core value of organizational development is all-win attitudes and cooperation, in which people caring about one another and about working together to achieve results that work for everyone, individually and collectively. Core value number seven deals with authenticity and openness in relationships. The eighth core value involves effectiveness, efficiency, and alignment. People achieving the maximum of desired results at minimum cost in ways that coordinate their individual energies and purposes with those of the system as a whole, the subsystem of which they are part, and the larger system of which their system is a part. The ninth core value involves holistic systemic review and stakeholders orientation. Understanding human behavior from the perspective of the whole system that influence and are influenced by that behavior, recognizing the interest that different people have in their system's results and valuing those interests fairly and justly. The tenth and final core value of organizational development involves wide participation in system affairs, confrontation of issues leading to effective problem solving, and democratic decision making.
Ethics deals with the choices that individuals make in their personal and professional lives, the choice between the morality of right and wrong. Relating it to business, organizational business ethics is the application of these morally related choices as influenced and guided by values, standards, rules, principles, and strategies associated with the organizational activities and business situations. Recognizing that a profession cannot be a profession unless it has a code of ethics is what inspired Dr. Bill Gillerman. He has put together an international code of ethics for organizational development people. The International OD Code of Ethics has been published in Polish, German, Spanish, Russian, and Hungarian. Contributions have come from Belgium, Canada, France, Germany, Great Britain, Hungary, India, Israel, Japan, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Spain, and the United States of America. Most of the major OD organizations in the world have agreed that it would be useful to have a commonly accepted international code of ethics for all OD professionals and have endorsed this process for developing one. Now laying the ethical guidelines for OD professionals. As a future OD professional, I commit myself to supporting and acting in accordance with the following ethical guidelines. First is the responsibility to self. It's my willingness to both accept the importance of standards that society establishes for individual behaviors and to make strenuous personal efforts to live by those standards. It consists of an act with integrity, authenticity, and truthfulness to myself, a strive for continuity of self-knowledge and personal growth, To recognize my personal needs and desires, and when they conflict with each other's responsibilities, seek all-win resolutions of those conflicts, and to assert my own economic and financial interests in ways that are fair and equitable to me as well as to my clients and to their stakeholders. Second is the responsibility for professional development and competence. I should accept responsibility for the consequences of my acts and make reasonable efforts to ensure that my services are properly used. Terminate my services if they are not properly used, and do what I can to see that any abuses are corrected. To strive to achieve and maintain a professional level of competence for both myself and my profession by developing the full range of my own competence and by establishing collegial and cooperative relations with other OD professionals. To recognize my own personal needs and desires and deal with them responsibly in the performance of my professional roles. To practice within the limits of my competence, culture, and experience in providing services and using techniques. And lastly is to practice in cultures different from my own, only with consultation from people native to or knowledgeable about those specific cultures. My third responsibility is to clients and significant others. To serve the long-term well-being, interests, and development of the client system and all its stakeholders, even when the work being done has a short-term focus. To conduct any professional activity, program, or relationship in ways that are honest, responsible, and appropriately open. To establish mutual agreement on a contract covering services and remuneration, and to make public statements of all kinds accurately, including promotion and advertising, and give service as advertised. Now my fourth responsibility is to the profession itself, to contribute to continuing professional development for myself, other practitioners, and the profession, to promote the sharing of OD knowledge and skills, to work with others professionally in ways that exemplify what the profession stands for, and to work actively for ethical practice by individuals and organizations engaged in OD activities, and in case of questionable practice, use appropriate channels for dealing with it. Lastly is social responsibility. I should act with sensitivity to the fact that my recommendations and actions may alter the lives and well-being of the people within my client systems and the larger systems of which they are subsystems. To act with awareness of the cultural filters which affect my view of the world, respect cultures different from my own, and be sensitive to cross-cultural and multicultural differences and their implications, and to promote justice and serve the well-being of all life on earth. By providing a common reference for OD professional, which is the OD Code of Ethics throughout the world, we seek to enhance our sense of identity as a global professional community. Let's run over some of the basic purposes of the Organizational Development Code of Ethics. First is to increase professional and ethical consciousness among OD professionals and their sense of ethical responsibility. Second is to guide OD professionals in making more informed ethical decisions. Third is to help the OD profession itself function at the fullest of its potential. We recognize that for us to exist as a profession, a substantial agreement is necessary among the members of our profession about what we profess, particularly our values and ethics. Moving on, let me show you a short clip regarding a not-so-ethical practice of one of the famous organizations we know, McDonald's.
Politicians in California are taking on the Happy Meal. San Francisco wants to ban the inclusion of toys in unhealthy fast food meals. Earlier this year, the county of Santa Clara passed a similar law. It's all in an effort to fight childhood obesity. But as Keith Bogue reports, not everyone's swallowing the plan.
No doubt, fast food restaurants such as McDonald's and Burger King give away toys to kids because it's good for their businesses. And no doubt the two California communities, San Francisco and Santa Clara, that are outlawing toy giveaways for fast food meals over 600 calories have the best of intentions. But theirs is a hard act to pull off without also insulting some parents.
It is tough for parents, and they're busy, and these meals can be very inexpensive. But at some point, they are really condemning their children to a lifetime of health problems.
Ouch. Parents don't like to be told they're harming their kids.
It's another big brother trying to stop me from doing what I want to do. It's up to my right as a parent to decide what my children eat or not to eat.
And McDonald's is quick to point out that its Happy Meals aren't all about burgers, soft drinks, and fries. They offer nutritional options,
which allows for our consumers to purchase a Happy Meal with different variety of items, including 1% low-fat milk, apple juice, and apple dippers.
But this is a country where childhood obesity is described as an epidemic.
A huckster in clown's clothing is still a huckster.
The Center for Science in the Public Interest aims to take the toys away from fast food joints nationwide.
Tempting kids with toys is unfair and deceptive, both to kids who don't understand the concept of advertising and to their parents who have to put up with their nagging children.
But there's some doubt as to whether tempting kids with toys really lures them away from healthier food, or whether it just lures them away from some other fast food restaurant.